Oh boy. Oh boy. Edward just got punted whoops, off the train by some security guard. Oh no. Let's see what happens. So he's man, he finally started to find people that he loved, but every time he finds someone, boom, they get let like he loses them. Ooh, that's got to be heartbreaking. So chapter 15. Some sort of looks like a crow on a stick. In the morning, the sun rose and the crickets sang, and the cricket song gave way to bird song, and an old woman came walking down the dirt road and tripped right over Edward. Humph, she said. She pushed at Edward with a fishing pole. Huh, looks like a rabbit, she said. She put down her basket and bent and stared at Edward. Only he ain't real. She stood back up. She said again. She rubbed her back. What I say is, there's a use for everything and everything has its use. That's what I say. Edward didn't care what she said. The terrible ache the terrible ache he had felt the night before had gone away and had been replaced with a different feeling, one of hollowness and despair. So remember, he felt like he felt so sad about losing Bull and Lucy, and now he has this just like hollowness and despair. He just feels like hopeless. Pick me up or don't pick me up, the rabbit thought. It makes no difference to me. The old lady picked him up. She bent him double and put him in her basket, which smelled of weeds and fish. And then she kept walking, swinging the basket and singing, Nobody knows the troubles I've seen. Edward, in spite of himself, listened. I've seen troubles too, he thought. You bet I have, and apparently they aren't over yet. Edward was right. His troubles were not over. The old woman found a use for him. She hung him from a pole in her vegetable garden. She nailed his velvet ears to the wooden pole and spread his arms out as if he were flying and attached his paws to the pole by wrapping pieces of wire around them. In addition to Edward, pie tins hung from the pole. They clinked and clanked and shone in the morning sun. So what do you think she's doing? She's tying Edward to a pole, so he's kind of like stretched out like this, and it has like metal pans and stuff hanging underneath him that are clinking and clanging. So he's like this in the middle of a vegetable garden. Why do you think she's doing that? Let's see if you guys can figure it out. Blah blah blah. In addition to Edward, pie tins hung from the pole. They clinked and clanked and shone in the morning sun. Ain't a doubt in my mind that you can scare them off, the old lady said. Scare them off? Scare who off? Edward wondered. Birds, he soon discovered. Crows. They came flying at him, cawing and screeching, wheeling over his head, diving at his ears. Go on, Clyde, said the woman. She clapped her hands. You go act ferocious. So look at what this lady named Edward. She doesn't know Edward's name was Malone and Susanna and then Edward before that, so she names him Clyde. And he's obviously being used as a scarecrow. Clyde, Edward felt a weariness so intense wash over him that he thought he might actually be able to sigh out loud. Would the world never tire of calling him by the wrong name? The old woman clapped her hands again. Get to work, Clyde, she said. Scare them birds off. And then she walked away from him, out of the garden and toward the small house. So this is what Edward looks like. Little Edward, a.k.a. Scarecrow, a.k.a. Clyde. The birds were insistent. They flew around his head. They tugged at the loose threads at his sweater. One large crow in particular would not leave the rabbit alone. He perched on the pole and screamed a dark message in Edward's ear. Caw, 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 without ceasing. As the sun rose higher and shone meaner and brighter, Edward became somewhat dazed. He mistook the large crow for Pellegrina. Oh, so now he's kind of almost hallucinating. He sees the crow, but it sort of looks like Pellegrina. Go ahead, he thought. Turn me into a warthog if you want. I don't care. I'm done with caring. Caw, caw, said the Pellegrina crow. Finally, the sun set and the birds flew away. Edward hung by his velvet ears and looked up at the night sky. He saw the stars, but for the first time in his life, he looked at them and felt no comfort. Instead, he felt mocked. Mocked means like made fun of. You are down there alone, the stars seemed to say to him, and we are up here in our constellations together. I have been loved, Edward told the stars. So, said the stars. Hey, the stars aren't literally talking to Edward. They're not literally. See, remember how we learned about literally and non-literal things? This is not literal. They're really not talking to him. He's just kind of daydreaming this in his head. What? So, said the stars, what difference does that make now that you're all alone? Edward could think of no answer to that question. So Edward's just kind of daydreaming about the stars. He used to like talking, like looking at them, but now he's imagining that they're sort of making fun of him. Eventually, the sky lightened and the stars disappeared one by one. The birds returned, and the old woman came back to the garden. She brought a boy with her. Ooh. Okay, guys. Good one. Here's the next one. Little hint. All right. Good job. See you guys later.